Hello, everyone. Welcome once again back to the Cyber Posture Live show. Today, we have an amazing topic for discussion. It is something that's going on across the nation and something which is a pivotal point in how the cybersecurity shapes up in the nation and across the globe. Today, we are going to discuss on the DPDP Act and what does it mean from an organization point of view. And I could not find someone better who is kind of a long time industry friend, mentor, and a knowledge sharing person. Today, we have with us Kavita Srinivasulu, the global head of cyber risk and data privacy, BFSI risk and compliance from Tata Consultancy Service. Kavita, welcome to the session, and I'm so glad to have you once again after a long time. So, first of all, how have you been doing?
Hi Sanket, hi everyone, good evening and good morning. And I'm really happy that I got an opportunity to sit with you today. And I'm doing good and, hope the same there. And I'm looking forward for sharing some learnings of mine, this, trending topic, which is most awaited one.
Right. So getting started, the DPDP Act in it's India's first data protection act, and it establishes a framework for the processing of personal data in India. Now, if I just talk in brief, a time when technology has become a defining paradigm of the 21st century, India's ongoing data protection regulation underscores the nation's focus on building a strong data privacy reign. This act applies on processing of the personal data, whether online or offline, which is going to be data digitized to be collected in the nation's territory. Having said that, it has got some few points like the right to information, right to correction and erasure, right to grievance redressals, and right to nominate. Well, a lot of things has been put on this particular act. Kavita, I would just request you to demystify that for our audience.
Sure. Sure, Sanket. As most of us are expecting for this Data Privacy Act release, and it has always been a most awaited one under discussion from 2017 itself. It has come into discussion through various, you know, instances, but it is yet to be released because of a lot of complications and a lot of expectation that it has to meet in, as its benefits is to safeguard the data of an individual, but the challenges arise with the organizations and the industries that is has to adhere to it. The DPDP bill that has been developed is primarily to protect the data of the personnel, but we'll have to keep in mind the emerging threats and risks in the recent past have always pushed or are mandating the governments across not only India but across the globe to take steps in releasing the bill to establish a robust privacy culture, to protect the personal data. So this bill that that we are talking about, which is getting released in India any recent past, this the Union Cabinet has approved the draft, right, by August, by July 2023, it was approved by the Union Cabinet, and by August, our president has approved, and we are preparing to for the release. But what are the expectations, what's the primary purpose of this act? If we see, it is definitely to provide the data protection while processing the data across, be it within India or outside India, be it for the children who are below 18, or for the elders, or for the demisses as well, demisses cases as well, where our India is definitely looking at protecting the right of the individuals to ensure their data is protected, and the need to process the personal data is for the legal and lawful purposes only, and not for exploiting the data and connecting to any upcoming or any evolving threats that we are seeing on a day-to-day basis. This particular act that we are looking at, if we take a step back and see, how did it came into picture, and how other countries across the globe are adapting to it. As per the recent study, what is the adoption rate has increased, especially post the COVID season. across the globe, out of 194 countries that we have, nearly 137 countries have adopted to this privacy acts, and a lot of them are in the process of making it a global act, and ensuring they are partnering at a geo level as well as at an organization level specifically, to ensure when we look at an organization, they are not connected to one geo or one country. Like, we work across multiple countries with multiple legislations and legal requirements. So when we are releasing an act, it is very important for the organizations to look at how we are able to comply as well as collaborate and also integrate this act in a manner that the data of the individuals is protected. At the same time, we are liable to protect the government's mandatory requirements as well. So when in Asia Pacific, where India falls into, we can say out of 60 countries, 34 countries have come up with this protection act. And this acts are, some of them have already released and some of them are in progress, but still this privacy act is very important. And being in India, I would be proud enough to say that there is one particular a step that, or term that India has used in the regulation, which none other country has taken so far. I would tell, if you look at the fiduciaries that is defined in the DPDP act, it uses the term her. See, I'm not saying that being a woman, I really feel proud about it, because none of the standards or acts have ever referred as her or she. So India has taken that so close that they are giving importance to the not only the protection of the data, but also the protection of women's confidential information or sensitive information that is very important to be protecting. So having said this, I think we have more to talk, and some of the challenges also the organizations are facing, which we would further get into. You have any queries so far, Saket?
So having said that, right, moving ahead, when I talk about it from an organization point of view, or on the overall picture of the DPDP, who are the different stakeholders who, like, to whom this particular act some way or the other affects? Who are the different stakeholders involved in this particular DPDP act?
Right. So first and foremost, when we are talking from an organization perspective, if we are working, as I said, we are working across multiple countries and multiple sectors, right? So each and every sector has their own loopholes and their standards defined. And for organizations, it is not important they only stick to one particular privacy act, one particular registration. They have to keep in mind there are acts and standards that is defined and which has to be adhered to when they are working with the respective geo. If we are taking for India, definitely this DPDP, when it comes into act, there are lots of sectors involved in it. It's not specific to BFSI or manufacturing or retail, right? There are multiple sectors involved in it. So we have to take some key considerations. So what are the key considerations and the principles that we'll have to keep in mind is especially not it started from the privacy acts that was released in May 2018, right? We all would have seen GDPR. So that's a I would say like an umbrella, but which was released, and a lot of principles that was defined, and that became one of the benchmark for setting a very stringent and legislative expectations to the not only the industries across specific sector, but across all the sectors. And that has definitely brought in a benchmark. So having that in mind, a lot of organizations have adapted to GDPR and try to adhere to the standards defined. When the similar thing applies to DPDP as well. DP has another a set of principles and expectations which is important, be it with the processing of data with respect to legality or transparency. Organizations must lawfully and fairly use the collected data, maintaining the transparency in the data that they are collecting and utilizing. And they call it a data principle. Usually, the personals in each and every geo, the privacy act has the terms defined in its own way. In DPDP, they call the individual's data as data principle. Okay, so they have to ensure the data that they are collecting and using is lawful and it's transparent nature. And also the next principle mainly talks about the purpose limitation. The purpose limitation is nothing but when you're collecting a data from any individual, it has to be used for a particular reason. The data should not be used for any unwanted purposes. It has to be predetermined and it not be misused for any legitimate purposes. So that's the second principle that we have in DPDP. And the third principle that it talks about, or a key pillar, I would say, is data minimization. So, especially when we talk about the data minimization in the organization, when we all would have seen, we are managing and handling humongous data, right? Lot of raw data is available, be it in a structured format, unstructured format, or a metadata. There's a lot of data that we are managing across the organization. So there is a necessity and a call out that we will have to minimize the data that we are collecting and using. It should exclude and filter the unwanted and unnecessary information, so that where it doesn't lead us to any kind of challenges or issues when they are coming from a regulation standpoint. And another key principle that DPDP talks about is on the accuracy. The accuracy of data fiduciaries, where we call, the recitals or the clauses. In DPDP, we call it a data fiduciary. The data fiduciary must make, must take key steps in taking efforts to ensure the collected data remains accurate and also up to date. Any outdated or unused data should not be in the records for a long term. It should be monitored properly. There should be a proper data retention policy that needs to be created at an organization level to ensure that the data that we are using are current and not outdated or unused. Okay. And another key principle that that comes up to picture is the storage limitation. When we talk about storage limitation, there is a lot of information that we store, and it loads and loads, because if it's needed or not needed, we always have a lot of data stored in our network to fulfill any predetermined, or maybe for the upcoming reasons, or even if the project is getting closed in an organization. We always expect, when we are going to read work with the customer, this retaining the data will always be useful, but that has to be relooked into. We have to ensure that the data that are stored, there is a duration, that is duration necessary is set, and we are fulfilling the expectations of the storage of data. So that is another key principle. Another organization that needs to look into is the accountability and managing or enabling the necessary security controls or important security controls. In When we're talking about the security controls, it is definitely which comes into picture, or which is globally accepted requirement, is ensuring the employees or the respective stakeholders who are going to work on the data are aware. The awareness is very, very important. The organization has to first look into their current policy governance structure of their data privacy posture. How is the privacy controls enabled, how are they controlled, how are they mapped and integrated within the organization, and ensure the employees who are going to work on the customers data are aware about the data that they're going to work on, take the ownership and accountable for the information that they are working on. So these are some of the key principles that the Privacy Act is trying to enable. This is primarily to protect the data and ensure that the organization takes the bare minimum responsibility, or the key responsibility, to protect the customers information and also its own employees data.
So I have a funny question here. Often we see when we walk into any food court, right, in a mall or any QSRs, they take our numbers where we do not sign any consent forms. There is not anything for us to read agreements and sign on it, right? We know that we can deny it, right? We do not want to give our number. Still, they have to bill it. It's not mandatory. But how does that particular thing gets more affected right now? Because someone takes the number without their permission or consent, they actually go and do anything and everything with that number, right?
Right.
Might be selling it off to agents or something like that. So, what's going to the change on that front?
So that's a good question. It's not funny, but that is very important question, Sanket, because that is one of the main reason why this privacy acts, not only globally but in India also, we are bringing in this culture. The reason is, when we are providing our data, the hackers or the predators are using this opportunity and have increased significantly the ransomware attacks or the data breaches globally. And that is one of the main reason we are bringing this into action. And how will this affect the the we can talk about the retail market or the manufacturing or anyone who's using it for marketing purposes. How will it affect them? So you would have always seen that there wouldn't be any consent that is gathered from us, even if it's going to be installing any application or buying any product. It was not there. But if you see, the trend is changing. You're always getting one. I don't know how many of us read it and accept, but 90% or 95% of us are only focused on getting the application, getting installed, and for the urgency we use it, but we don't read what we are agreeing and giving consent to. But the trend is changing, and your consent is required in any application or any product that you're buying. Unless and until you accept, that messages or the calls that you usually get for marketing purposes will not repeat. But how many of us are understanding the impact behind it and accepting that is a big question mark. And that's where this awareness and training is very important, not only at an organization level but also at a country level. Each and every team has to take up that responsibility to be aware before what we accept and what we agree to. Okay, that is a consent which is very important. I'll tell you how it will affect. Nowadays we are getting lot of calls, right? I'm sure at least two or three customer service calls we get, which we call a wishing call. Okay, when we talk about social engineering here specifically. And we'll get SMS, we will get WhatsApp messages, from various shops and from various vendors, that that is a good opportunity, that good sales, you can utilize that, there is so much of offer, some traction towards the products or applications that they want to sell. And we are also having a smishing SMS type of attacks. We are having phishing emails, which is email based attacks. So when all these is coming up and trying to affect this, there will be an end to it. But how? Right? So in case once this act, the DPDP act, is going to get released, and we are going to there will be two options given for the customers or for the individuals or data fiduciaries based, that if we want to receive such calls or SMS or messages, we will opt in. If we don't want any kind of messages or no disturbance, we don't want anyone to know about our data and exploit our data and receive any marketing messages or calls, there is an opt out option. We will be given that option to opt in or opt out. In case if you are opting out of that, and in spite of opting out you get a message or a call from the same vendor, at any point of time, the individual has the rights to raise it as a concern. And when it is raised as a concern, it becomes an incident, and that would undergo definitely some level of investigation. And if it's going to be understood that without an individual's consent, that the vendor has taken exploited the data or misused the data, they would definitely be penalized. And the penalization ranges from 50 crores to 250 crores, okay, Indian money. And we can imagine it's not a small amount, and the number of calls and messages we get per day is not for one or two people, it's in millions and billions of them get almost every day. So imagine the vendor or the the owner of that product is going to call you or to message you, and get caught, he can't run his business anymore. And that was one of the main concern why this act was delayed in India, I would say, because a lot of them were having concerns, especially in the retail and manufacturing sectors and telecom service providers. They were not willing to take it up because they know the impact, because of the level of marketing strategies they've been using in the past or even till today. They will not be able to do the same in future. If the customer is going to opt out of any kind of messages or calls that they don't want to receive, then you're not supposed to reach out to them, because you don't have their consent to to reach out to them, right? So that's a concern that they have, but which our government is very strict and stringent, that this personal data has to be protected, and we will not be able to go beyond this anymore. And why? Because there is another way of utilizing our data, utilizing the personal data, which we call the personally identifiable information, which was sold for 30 to $40, before 2020 or before COVID. Today it is sold from 350 to 400 per dollar. Per PII is sold for 350 to $400. Imagine the impact that it will have. Imagine the level of threat that we have on our personal information, and how the predators will be looking forward to hunt for our data. So this is important, and unless the vendors have our consent, it will not be able to proceed any further.
So we have a question here from
Yes.
Shivanandi Singha. Does the Digital Personal Data Protection Act in India influence an organization's incident response strategy?
Yes. Yes, that's a good question. Yes, each and every privacy hack have their own response time, right? Based on which your incident response plan have to be built and have to be practiced. And it is not that the organization is going to be sticking to only one digital act or one privacy act. There are lots of standards and regulations that is spread across, and that the organization have to adapt to. But they cannot be having multiple policies and multiple standards within an organization, which will definitely lead to confusions. But they will have to adapt to the best practices of one standard, and the regulation that complies with all the regulations and standard requirements. And that is one of the strategy that all the organizations are working on, how to adapt to, how to ensure that our organization is matured enough to face the DPDP requirements. Okay, and their right, starting from their policy, their governance structure, their consent management systems, their change management, their SOA, and their incident management plan. Everything has to go for a refresh again, to ensure it is necessary. If they are operating from India, they are compliant with DPDP Act as well.
So we have another question from Tajdar Alam. What is the
Yes.
role of user awareness and training in DPDP cybersecurity? And how do you ensure employees are well informed and vigilant? Also, is it a challenging task to make sure that they are well versed with the guidelines? Well, the last one is obviously yes, it's a very challenging task to make everyone aware. But
Yes.
as per my understanding, it is a function of the employees at the end, right? Because these are the people who drive any business. And but there is a huge role of user awareness and training in DPDP. So on that part, but I just like to extend this question is as a in the whole world we're seeing, right, there's a lot of problem with the insider threats or the problems that are coming from inside the organizations. We have seen what had happened in Uber, whether Uber CISO was penalized and the actions were taken. But in terms of cybersecurity itself, there is a lot of lack in awareness. Now come DPDP. So how is the whole thing going to happen? And any tips from your end on how you are advising the different organizations in the across the globe on taking up things, not only just DPDP but overall on privacy aspects as well?
Okay. Okay. So that's a good question, Vicky. And just to give you a fair understanding about the awareness, training and awareness is the base, and it's globally accepted truth that it's one of the highest, threat or a risk that all of us are facing. Because how much of the technology is going to grow, and how much of our facilitations that we are making, end of the day it is the employees awareness which is very important. Because people who are the executors have to have that knowledge, and have to be aware about what they are working on, what they are managing, and take the ownership on in all the data that they are working on. So the challenge arises here, where it's not that people who are working in a critical project have to take care of the data, or are accountable, or very playing a crucial role here. That's a myth or assumptions that employees have, or any individual has. We have to accept one truth, that each and every one of us who is working in an organization own the data. irrespective if you're working in a critical project or a non-critical project, that you own a specific or a critical role in that organization. But how? There'll be questions that is rising, ma'am, I'm not working on any critical project, it's just a desktop, it's just a thin client, I don't have any data, so how is it critical, right? So the predators don't target only the critical projects, because they know there are important security controls or the privacy controls that the organizations are enabling would be little tough challenge for them. But still, they would be intruding through different networks, and one being the individual, the non-critical resources as well. All they need is a gateway, a key to enter your network. That's all, right? So it's irrespective of what project or data that you're working on. If they are able to get a gateway to enter your system, it can always play around the network that you're working on, right? So it is very important that as an individual, as an employee, or as a responsible citizen, we have to understand the criticality or the importance of the individual's data, and give equal importance to it to protect the data. And from that is from an individual standpoint. But from the organization standpoint, what are the some of the measures that they can take to ensure that their data is protected, is some of the best practices or some of my learnings that I would like to share here is, first and foremost, is they have to have one of the key KRI in building the training and awareness as one of their key requirement. There has to be some level of activities that needs to be enabled, be it by creating a module, a learning module, or be it on sending frequent or regular posters to the employees, to be for them to be aware about what is happening outside our network, what kind of threats are evolving, what kind of incidents are occurring, so for them to be aware about it, to take precautionary measures rather than reacting after an incident occurs. And be it by doing some simulations, some phishing emails that the organizations can send to test and see how effective are their employees in responding to any phishing emails, how they are aware about to respond to a phishing email. All these steps that they need to take from an individual's awareness perspective. Other stuff, other steps that the organization has to take is, whenever they are adapting to any technology, they have to keep in mind it is not necessary that we buy any softwares or applications or tools and configure in our system or in our infrastructure. It is very important, when the tool is new, even the employees who are going to work on the tool also should be completely aware about the tool, aware about its pros and cons before they get into the execution mode. But that is not happening. Whenever there is a tool or a software that is acquired or deployed by the organization, they expect any security resource can work on it, irrespective of what type of tool or what type of application that they're going to work with, which is definitely where the organization has to relook into and ensure the employees are competent enough before they get into the execution mode. That's the second step that I would suggest. And another best best practice that we'll have to use is, whenever we are installing or getting into enable any security control in our environment, it shouldn't be just as available in the market, you go ahead, procure, and deploy in your infrastructure. It has to always be there is some level of homework has to be done. We have to understand what is our organization's current threat landscape, what kind of application is required, or what kind of tools needs to be deployed. Because security is not a formula applying which we get 100% compliance, or installing an application we are 100% safe, right? So whenever and the same tool will not be suitable for all the organizations as well. So we'll have to do some homework and see if we need to go with multiple tools, or one centralized tool which would be effective for managing and governing our current threat landscape. How effective it is, and how our existing environment will be able to comply with that, or will be able to integrate with that application. And is it suitable, and will it be applicable or suitable for our current requirements? All this has to be evaluated by the organization to ensure, it is not investing alone is very important, it is also ensuring the effectiveness of the tool or application also applies, right? So that's another one. And another, when we are thinking from data protection or DPDP Act, which is released now, there are some of the key requirements that the regulators or the data fiduciaries expect is, first and foremost, we need to appoint a DPO. Ensure, I'm not sure if an organization has a DPO currently, or there are multiple roles played by the existing security team itself. Even the CISO plays a DPO role, or a CIO plays, CTO plays, and even the cybersecurity experts play a DPO role. But it's not the title that matters, but we'll have to ensure the person who is appointed as a DPO is competent enough and is aware about the DPO, and takes the complete ownership and responsibility of ensuring whatever data that is getting transferred inside or outside India is vetted through them before it moves out, right? That is very important, that there is a dedicated DPO who takes the complete charge of data protection activities. That's one. And another one is, there has to be a mechanism that needs to be created and governed by the organizations on the transfers. The controlled transfers is one of the key requirement, because within India we don't work, or all the organization don't work with the companies or the clients within India, right? It is always outside India. Most majority of that, it is central. So we'll have to always oversee the kind of data that is exported beyond India is governed, and we are complying with the regulatory requirements without any discrepancies in there. And another key best practice that should be followed by the organizations is to have a a proper incident response plan that is created and practiced. Now, we would have seen the incident response plan as one of the associate just raised a question, right? It is not an incident response plan which is a security incident response plan that applies here. We have to create a data breach incident response, DBIR, we call that. DBIR response plan should be available in all the organizations, having primarily the privacy data exploitation or data breaches as the primary concern and primary parameter for handling or for responding to in this plan that they are creating and practicing. So that is very important, where the timelines, where the SLAs or the turnaround times are completely documented, reported, and the entire team who is monitoring and managing this DBI, or the response team, the privacy response team, have to understand whom to notify. And for DPDP, it is Data Protection Board, and they have to ensure they know whom to report to and where to report to, and the contact information, everything should be updated. You have to keep a tab on the changes, ongoing changes which is happening on the regulator side. Integrate with them on an ongoing basis. Ensure we are current on the act requirement. Also, the response level have to be tested on an ongoing basis, to ensure that we don't end up in paying hefty penalties when there is a situation arises. So we will have to always examine on our on ongoing basis, examine our current practices, and integrate with the evolving fiduciaries, and ensure if there is any changes that is required are adapted and also implemented in our current environment. So these are some of the best practices. And one last one that I would don't want to miss is on the upgradation of our tools and applications that we are using on a day-to-day basis. Please ensure it is not enough if you just buy a product, implement or deploy in your systems, and your job is over. There has to be a proper upgradation of the softwares and the applications that you install. There has to be an ongoing vulnerability assessments or penetration testing that needs to be done for understanding, if there are any vulnerabilities that we are working on, or if there is any loopholes that needs to be, if that's found and that has to be mitigated. For example, I would like to share with you here is, uh, the applications might be working as good as always, which we might not be aware. One of the recent incident in US specifically is that there was data loss, or the system is very cranky or not responding properly whenever required, and there is a data loss that is happening on an ongoing basis. But the system is not able to, or the team is not able to understand, the organization not able to understand what is wrong with my system. Everything is fine, we have all the security controls, we are doing our internal external audits on an ongoing basis, there are no gaps that were identified, and we are all green. So what is going wrong with that? So when exclusive audit was done on the applications by calling the big fours, then they identified there is more than 200 days that they are working on top of some vulnerabilities which is already existing in one of the application, which was not which was not identified and mitigated on a timely basis. So we should that is why we always recommend there has to be an ongoing assessment that needs to happen on the applications and the tools that we are working on, to ensure if there are any vulnerabilities or gaps that are identified are mitigated on a timely basis, to avoid any any incidents in a proactive mode. Okay, so these are some of the best practice I wanted to share.
So, due to the interest of time, right, we have few more questions. I have one question from Nazis, which is not showing in the application that we are using, but in LinkedIn,
Sure.
so I'll ask that question at last. But I'm going to
Sure.
merge the next two questions, which is from Abhijit Ingle. This question is, given the DPDP Act's requirement to obtain consent from individuals before collecting and processing personal data, with this stifle AI and ML innovation, which often relies on large data sets of personal data that are collected involuntarily. That's one. With that, I'd also like to merge the question that Amreen has. How can organize develop a holistic DPDP strategy that not only ensures compliance with evolving data protection regulations, but also fosters a culture of data privacy awareness and accountability throughout the entire organization, and what are the critical challenges that they may encounter in this journey. So one of the challenges which Abhijit is telling is about the AIML innovation, right? So how to amalgamate both of them and move to a like so that innovation is also not compromised and DPDP is also taken care of. What are the things that can be done with that?
Okay, to answer the first question on the AIML part, yes, AIML is evolving, and a lot of organizations are trying to adapt to this emerging technology. But as I said, it is not only important that we try to adapt to the emerging technology, there has to always be a stand on ensuring the security controls are embedded with the growing technologies, which is getting missed, you know. Not only one or two but globally, because they always consider the technology or the product is more important, the revenue is important, and they only think from developing and offering the upgraded or emerging trends with the customers. But security parameters are always a missing item. So for if we are missing the security controls or security parameter and the growing technology, the challenges continue. So if you take AI is developing and it's in the emerging stage, in the niche area, we don't currently we can't quote how many incidents are increasing or what is the challenges that we may have to foresee. But cloud is one example that I could take, that when organizations started adapting to the cloud computing, they most of them failed to adapt or enable this security controls. Nearly 60 to 70% of the companies have adapted to the cloud computing, but security controls has already always been a myth, that when I'm moving to the cloud, my data is protected by the cloud service providers, and my work for enabling the security controls is not a necessity. So having this myth in mind, they failed to address the security requirements, and which led to the double or insignificant increase in the cybersecurity incidents. Because if you see the recent reports, the number of incidents that occurred on prem is much lesser than what is occurring in the cloud. The primary reason for that is the security controls were not enabled or not checked before they moved it to the cloud. Especially when an application is getting moved to the cloud, there is a primary responsibility, that you have to check the if there are any vulnerabilities in the application, if there is any loopholes before you move the application to the cloud. But that was not happening, and that is why, once it moved to the cloud, it affects the whole environment, and the cloud security incident or cloud computing incident have increased significantly. And first and foremost, one thing that each and every individual or every organization has to understand is cloud computing is not cloud service providers responsibility. It's a shared responsibility that needs to be accepted, and we have to come out of that myth that we have to take our share of responsibilities while we are adapting to not specifically only cloud but also to AML, IoT, or ML, anything where whatever technology that we are adapting to, security plays a primary role where it has to be considered while we are adapting to the new technology. And at an organization level, yes, how DPDP would be would be adopted, and how they would be facing the challenges. First and foremost, as I said, awareness, training and awareness is very important. And when the act is going to get released, and we are sure, actually, DPDP release was under discussion for quite some time. As I said, it's nearly 4 to 5 years. It has always been under discussion. So we are looking forward for the release of DPDP. It's not yet released, but almost the final approvals have come in. So when it is going to get released, definitely the organizations will get some time for them to do the implementation and get the readiness. During this readiness phase, we don't know how much time will be provided. That's still under discussion. But when the time is given, the organizations have to proactively take the steps now itself. I believe I've seen most of the organizations or the most of the clients have taken some proactive steps in doing a DPDP self assessment, in understanding, is my organization matured enough to address the DPDP requirements, right? So they are taking the initiative to do a self assessment to understand their you know uh, maturity levels. The same has to be done by all the organizations. Once it is released and a time is given, that is a golden period. It has to be it has to be implemented. Even if they haven't started yet, it has to be looked into, and the organizations have to implement DPDP. And once the regulators give this a point of time, and after which the regulators will come in for assessment, right? They will come in for ensuring the DPDP requirements are adhered by the organizations. So when the regulators come for doing this checks and balances, then if there is going to be any non-compliance, as I said, the scrutiny and the level of penalties is going to be significantly high, like 50 crores to 250 crores. As I was saying, it is not a small amount to leave it loose, right? It is very important that the organizations are compliant in nature, and the data fiduciaries are addressed and ensure they are compliant in nature. Okay. And the challenges other challenges what the organizations are looking forward to, especially for the organizations who haven't looked into data privacy or any security so far, is embedding the data privacy in your existing governance culture. And they are afraid if there it will be an increase in the maintenance cost, and how difficult will it be to enable the access controls, because some of the companies, especially in the manufacturing and retail industries, they still have this paper pen work, or they have this paper work, or just a basic SSO logins. They don't have much security controls, so they are worried now how it would be if I need to enable my access controls and enable security controls in my environment. What kind of documentation is needed, what level of internal audit or quality assurance required, how much of data should I manage within my network, and how they have to be governed, and how to manage the visibility of the data that they are handling within the organization. So these are a couple of challenges that the organizations are disturbed or face or expecting challenges in that. But the best practices or the best recommendation that I can give from my side personally is that it's nothing to be alarmed, or it's not that it's a very difficult task to implement in any organization. All we have to understand is, so far we have lived with the data without understanding the importance of it. But once we understand how important the individual's data is and how it's getting exploited, because to quote that, in the top five top 5 countries or the geos who are undergoing cyber incident, India comes in one of the positions, right? So that is why our government is so much concerned and want to take precautionary measures before it increases, and we want to build a very secure environment so that India and our Indians data is protected, and we are able to work in a secured environment and increase the digitization that we are working towards. Hope that answers. Any other
Great.
queries?
Yeah. So there's one more question, which was the first question, but I'll ask at the last. Right. It's
Sure.
from Rajesh, who's asking, and this would be the last question, Kavita. We have 5 minutes to wrap it up. Right. So within
Sure.
5 minutes, we'll have to cover this one.
Sure.
His question is, data protection, this particular bill which has come up, is a particular department which the act also says that there has to be a data protection and the data uh, handling department, right, which would be headed by the DPO. But his question is, why? What does this DPDP Act mean to the infosec teams, right? Because as we all know, there like it's a known fight in the industry. There's a fight between infosec and IT teams,
Yeah.
right? There's also at times fight between business team and infosec teams. What's going to be the tussle between data protection teams and infosec teams?
Right. Right. So that's a question that's a ever evolving or discussing if infosec what is infosec's role in data privacy team. But one thing that it has to be accepted and it has to be understood is data privacy and cybersecurity or infosec team have to work hand in hand, right? They are partners. Data privacy cannot work without cybersecurity resources, because be it on access controls, or be it on incident response, or be it on monitoring, be it on SOC, for ensuring we are able to monitor and respond to the incident. Cyber security controls are equally important, and infosec team play a key role as well to ensure that the data privacy team gets equal support. So there is a very lenient gap between cybersecurity and data privacy. Data privacy works primarily on the personal data of individuals, right? And information security works, or cybersecurity works primarily on the assets and data of the organization, of the critical data. So these two are important. It is only the scope differs, but they have to work in hand in hand. End of the day, in cybersecurity team needs to protect the
So just to
customers'
ask there,
data. Yes, please.
yeah, it's, on the data side, right? Is it a more function of the technology team rather than the infosec team?
Again, when we're talking about the technology team, again, technology team is dependent on cyber and data both, right? There, it is all interrelated, and we cannot see it as a separate team, because specifically technology always comes under cyber security. Now cyber security itself, information security, is an umbrella. If you'd say that's a umbrella under which, be it network security, technology, be it data privacy, business continuity, vulnerability management, be it a digital identity, GRC, all this come under information security platform. But this data privacy has come as a separate vertical, for the main reason of the number of the number of data breaches that is increasing day by day. That is why they have taken it out in not in giving some key concentration or key attention to the data privacy, because it itself is having lot of importance and requirements to protect the personal data of individuals or stakeholders of our own customers. Because end of the day, whatever however the technology grows and whatever security controls that we are going to enable, it is to protect the data of the individuals, right? So that is why data privacy is taken separately, to ensure it is given key attention, and we are going to protect and secure the environment. Hope that answers your query.
Yeah, absolutely. Kavita, it has been a pleasure, and we have finished on time. Right. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for your like so much of insights. The DPDP Act, from an organizational point of view, so aptly presented, so aptly described on each of the points with the examples. Really enjoyed the session with you. And until next time, right? But thank you once again, Kavita, for joining us on this Cyber Posture Live show.
It's my pleasure, and thank you everyone for taking time, especially during the weekend, and looking forward, to work together and secure our India together. Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Yeah, just the statistics. Whenever Kavita comes for the sessions with us, we get a lot of questions in the comment section. Right. So one day when we host Kavita on a like offline show, I'm not sure how many questions are you going to get, Kavita. You are going to like get bogged up with a lot of questions because
No, I'll be
I
happy.
was
And
we just got a I
yes,
just got a
no, no,
message like the way
yeah.
Kavita speaks, it's like she is educating us, right? So that's something that really I have seen over the period of years. And yeah, thank you once again on that.
No, thank you. And security is definitely not a solo job. It is a teamwork and team efforts. We have to work together to secure our environment, right? Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
thank you, Kavita. Yeah, bye. So, audience, that's all for this week. We'll again catch up next week on another topic. Stay tuned, stay updated, and a lot of other news coming up soon from Zeron. And do catch up Zeron at the Your Story Tech Sparks Bangalore on 22nd and 23rd of September. Till then, keep hustling and stay safe on the digital world. Thank you.